Fast-moving developments in the war in Ukraine, and there may be a road to the end of the war. Here are some points we'll bring up to you. First, Russian President Vladimir Putin is signaling he's ready to sit down at the negotiating table. Second, in an interview with the Associated Press, Ukraine's foreign minister said his government is aiming to have a peace summit at the United Nations by the end of February. That's the one-year anniversary of the war. But, and this is a big but, Russia would need to be prosecuted for war crimes. And third, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov just told the Russian news agency TASS that nothing gets done until Ukraine acknowledges Russia's new territories, as they're calling it, or else Russia will take military action. More now from Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba.
We are aiming at the end of February, when the war will kind of enter its second, or is expected to enter its second year. The idea of the peace formula is twofold. On the one hand, not to allow Russia to manipulate the issue of peace, because they regularly say that they are ready for negotiations, which is not true, because everything they do on the battlefield proves the opposite, proves to the contrary. They're not seeking peace.
Joining me live now is Ksenia Svetlova. She's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Ksenia, thank you so much for joining me. My first question is very simple. What is Kuleba saying? What's the signal he's trying to put out?
Well, since we experience now in the U.S., let's start from the U.S., the country that was not mentioned in your presentation now. We will have in the Congress that it will go from the Democratic side to the Republican side. In the Republican Party, there are a few congressmen and supporters that blame Ukraine for desire to extend this military operation for a long, long time and to extract as many military and financial support from the U.S. As possible. So I think the message of Kuleba is, first of all, to the world, of course, but also to the U.S. No, we are not into prolonging this war more than it should be. We were attacked. We do support the idea of peace. It's not only Russia that repeatedly says that from the day one, basically, yes, they were ready to sit at the negotiation table from day one, but on one condition, that they will get what they want, the denazification requirement. And this is what we hear from Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs Lavrov also today. So not much changed on the Russian side. The Ukrainian side wants to emphasize, I think, this point. We are ready for negotiations. We do want peace. Our country is bleeding, but we do want to get a hold of our old territories.
Yeah, but didn't
Crimea.
Yeah, but didn't the Foreign Minister Kuleba basically said that they won't even go to the table until there's a war crimes trial against Russia? How are you going to do that? That'll take years. That's a decade in Syria. They're not even doing that.
Exactly. So this is how you do it, basically. Yes, you indicate that you are willing to embrace peace. However, there is absolutely no way that Ukraine can give up the demand for military persecution of the crimes that Russia performed in Ukraine, or controlling of its own territory, or eliminating the danger of, reigniting the war by Russia that can be strengthened in a year or two and can just go back to what we had now. So Ukraine demands guarantees from Russia, from the world. Obviously, nobody in the current situation is ready to give them. So I think this is basically a PR attempt of talking about peace. But I do not think that the initial positions of the sides had changed from the beginning, from the first days of the war.
Right.
They are just as far from each other as they were by February 24.
Right. Lavrov even just this morning said that there'll be military action if Ukraine doesn't accept that the territories that Russia is occupied has now become Russia. I mean, that seems like that's very strong. That's basically saying you either accept it or else we'll come in and we'll even make it even worse.
Yes, Albert, you made a great point. How you can talk about any peace negotiations when basically, Russia says, well, this territory that we just occupied, you have to recognize that this is, our territory. You have to recognize, or else, and this is not a good starting point for any negotiations, or else we will have to use military force. And what was that for the last 10 months? They destroyed houses and cities in Ukraine, hundreds and thousands of dead. all across the country. What was that? It was not the use of military power. So it seems like a non-starter. The whole story seems that it's non-starter. But Ukraine, since it engages with the world, not like Russia, it has supporters in the US, it has supporters in Europe. It has to signal its readiness, basically, yes, to stop the warfare if its demands will be fulfilled.
Now, Kuleba says that he wants to do the negotiation at the United Nations. If I'm not mistaken, the other day, Ukraine went and said they want to have Russia removed from the United Nations. So in that situation, there's no way of moving forward.
Well, we also heard from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He didn't sound very excited on this note. He said that basically if both parties will require and agree to his mediation, only then he will, take up this task. But as we understand, neither of the sides right now is very eager to do practical steps in order to allow for some even ceasefire. We are not even talking about peaceful negotiations right now in the protocol format. But even for the ceasefire, there is not enough goodwill. And for Russians, yes, just in the beginning of the war, they are still talking about denazification, demilitarization of Ukraine, and control of a large chunk of its territories. For the Ukrainians, they also believe that it's a matter of life and death for them, of course, for Zelensky himself, but also for the regular Ukrainians that see how for the last 10 months they are being slaughtered by the Russian army.